Now this tastes natural.
What is going on? Who has done this to us?
Now, where I say, make I chop food. When thing they happen for this village, I beg.
She drank from the forbidden pot, and the sacred drum that hadn't sounded in 150 years suddenly began to beat. In the village of Anuegwe, cradled between two deep rivers that stretched beyond, to the neighboring villages of Amoku and Okiri, life thrived in harmony with nature. The soil was the richest in the land, bursting with lush crops and fragrant plants. But what truly set Anuegwe apart was its culture, its legendary fishing festival, and most of all, the unmatched beauty of its women. Their beauty was legendary, so exquisite that men from far and wide would travel just to catch a glimpse. And in Anuegwe, winning a woman wasn't a simple affair. During special festivals, men would compete fiercely in wrestling matches, battling for the right to marry the village's most beautiful daughters. Only the strongest, the bravest, the most skilled could earn the hand of a woman in Anuegwe. Yet, the village faced a unique challenge. Despite their beauty, women were scarce. Each family bore only one daughter, making every girl a treasure. From the moment a girl was born, men would line up with gifts and promises, securing their place as her future husband long before she reached womanhood. Women in Anuegwe were valued like gold, not just for their beauty, but for the rare power they carried in their lineage. And then there was the mystery. Girls born outside Anuegwe, even in neighboring villages, could never match the beauty of those born within. Something about Anuegwe, its rivers, its soil, or perhaps an unseen magic imbued its daughters with an otherworldly charm, as if they were descended from mermaids themselves. In Anuegwe, beauty was not just admired, it was fought for, celebrated, and protected, and every birth carried the weight of destiny. The wrestling ground was loud with men's voices. Dust rose from their feet as they circled each other, muscles tight, eyes fixed. The winner would marry at ease from the next compound. Her father had already accepted the yam tubers and palm wine. Here was Amaka, her childhood crush, who had never stopped loving her. Tall, broad-shouldered, and muscular, he took pride in his strength. His way of showing affection was unusual, lifting heavy stones, flexing his arms, or carrying enormous logs as if proving his love with sheer power. One afternoon, he called Amaka to the village training ground. "Come see what I can do," he said, flashing a grin. He introduced her to two of his friends, both grinning at his exaggerated demonstrations of strength. Amaka watched quietly as Ameka hoisted stone after stone, each heavier than the last. Sweat glistening on his skin, he flexed, puffed out his chest, and recounted how he had once lifted a stone that weighed more than most men could even budge. She forced a polite smile, her notebook clutched tightly to her chest. "Impressive," she murmured, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She longed for laughter, for gentle words, for something romantic, not this endless parade of muscles and numbers. Finally, she shook her head. "Emeka," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "You're strong, yes, but you're not romantic." He blinked at her, caught off guard. His grin faltered. Then he laughed nervously, scratching the back of his neck. "Romantic?" he asked. I don't know how to do that." Amaka smiled faintly, turning her gaze back toward the trees swaying in the afternoon breeze. Strength could move mountains, but it couldn't reach her heart. Amaka sat behind the arena, under a mango tree, her notebook open. She was writing about city life, the restaurants, the cinemas, the boys who brought flowers instead of stones. "Amaka!" Her mother's voice cut through the noise. "Come inside." She closed the notebook and walked home slowly. The sun was hot. Her wrapper stuck to her legs. Children ran past her chasing a rolling tire. Women carrying firewood on their heads called greetings. She forced a smile and waved back. Inside their compound, Mama Amaka stood with her arms folded. 3 empty pots sat by the kitchen door. The cooking fire had gone cold. No food was being prepared. Your mates are carrying their second child on their backs. And you? You sit under trees writing foolishness. Mama, I'm only 20. 20! When I was 20, I had already given your father 2 sons. You think food cooks itself? You think this roof repairs itself? She pointed at the thatch above them, worn thin in places where rain would soon leak through. Amaka looked at the ground. She had heard this speech many times. The words were like stones, dropped into still water, creating the same ripples over and over. Those men fighting out there, they fight because women are few. Do you know how lucky you are? In other villages, girls beg for suitors. Here, they line up at your door like ants to sugar. I don't want a man who fights, Amaka said quietly. Her mother stepped closer. Amaka could smell the palm oil on her hands, the wood smoke in her hair. You think your father was my type? You think I chose him from love? She laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Marriage is not about type. It's about survival. It's about continuing the family. Your brothers are married. You shame us. Amaka said nothing. What could she say? That she had seen different ways in the city? That women there chose their own husbands? Or chose not to marry at all? Her mother would only grow angrier. I told your father not to send you to that city. Now look at you, full of ideas that don't feed anyone. Her mother turned away and began arranging the pots roughly, the clay clanking against clay. Your father is too soft with you. If it were my choice alone, you would have been married at 16 like your grandmother was. That night, Amaka lay on her mat staring at the ceiling. Through the thin wall, she could hear her brother's wife singing to their baby, one female child, just like every other family in Anuegwe. She heard the baby coo, heard her brother's deep voice joining the lullaby. For a moment, she felt a pang of something not quite envy, but a kind of loneliness. Outside, crickets sang. A dog barked in the distance. The night wrapped around the compound like a blanket, familiar and suffocating at the same time. At the market the next day, Mama Lucy blocked her path between the yam stalls. Ah, city girl, you don't come again. Amaka tried to smile and move past, but Mama Lucy was not finished. She never was. You see my daughter? 2 children already. Your friend Ngozi? 3. All your classmates married and building their homes. Nah, only you remain, walking about like tourists. Other women turned to look. Some smiled. Some shook their heads. One older woman clicked her tongue in that particular way, that meant disapproval without words. Amaka bought her tomatoes and left quickly. Her basket felt heavier than it should. Or maybe it was just her spirit that felt heavy. She walked past the primary school, where she had once sat learning to read. The children were outside playing, their laughter sharp and bright in the afternoon air. Most of them were boys, always mostly boys. On her way home, she passed Teacher Nweko's compound. People were gathered there, voices low. A white cloth hung at the gate, the sign of death. Amaka stopped. Her heart began to beat faster. What happened? An old man sitting on a bench looked up. His eyes were red. She died this morning. Childbirth. The 15th one. 15th? Her husband wanted to prove he could produce a second daughter. The woman's body couldn't carry it anymore. He shook his head slowly. She begged him, told him she was too tired. But he insisted, said the gods would favor him this time. Amaka felt something cold move through her chest. Teacher Nweko had taught her in primary school. She remembered her kind voice, her careful handwriting on the board. She remembered how teacher would sometimes pause during lessons, her hand on her swollen belly, her face tight with pain she tried to hide. Now she was gone. 15 children, 14 sons, 1 daughter who stood near the door crying, surrounded by all those brothers. Amaka left quickly, her basket heavy. The tomatoes felt like stones. She thought about Teacher Nweko's daughter, just 13 years old. By next year, the men would start coming to her father's door with gifts. The cycle would begin again. Near the stream, she saw an old woman struggling with a water pot. The woman's back was bent, her steps uncertain. Mama, let me help you. The woman turned. Her face was deeply lined, her eyes sharp despite her age. You are the city girl? Yes, Mama. Good. Walk with me." They went to a small hut at the edge of the village. Inside, it smelled of herbs and smoke. Dried plants hung from the rafters. Clay pots lined the walls. A small fire burned in the center, its smoke escaping through a hole in the roof. The woman sat down slowly, her joints creaking, and pointed to a stool. "You heard about Teacher Anuegwe?" Amaka nodded, her throat tight. "This village kills its women slowly," the old woman said. She poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks flying upward. "One daughter per family. You know why?" "No, Mama." The old woman was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled. Outside, birds called to each other as evening approached. Long ago, women here had many daughters, 3, 4, sometimes 5. Then something changed. The land was cursed. She paused, her eyes distant, seeing something Amaka could not see. "My great-grandmother told me there is a sacred pond in a cave. Our ancestors went there, seeking power. They did terrible things. And the goddess of that water, she cursed us. 1 daughter per womb, no more." "Where is this cave?" The old woman's eyes narrowed. "Why do you want to know?" "I'm just asking." "The elders say if anyone goes there, they will never return. A drum will sound and the whole village will be cursed again." She leaned forward. "Men have tried. Warriors, hunters, the brave and the foolish." Amaka's pulse quickened. "What happened to them?" "No one knows. They entered and the forest swallowed them. Some say the goddess killed them. Some say the cave itself is alive and hungry." The old woman shook her head. "Don't think about it, child." But Amaka was already thinking. Her mind raced with possibilities, with questions that had no answers. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Teacher Anuegwe's compound, the white cloth, the crying children. She kept hearing her mother's words, "Marriage is about survival." But what kind of survival was this? Women dying to produce daughters they would never know. Girls married at 16 to men who saw them as vessels, not people. A whole village trapped in a curse no one dared to challenge. In the morning, she found her father sharpening his machete outside. The sound of metal on stone rang through the compound. "Papa, do you know about the sacred pond?" His hand stopped. He looked at her carefully, his eyes searching her face. "Who told you that story?" "Mama Amadou." He put down the machete. "My mother warned me about that place." He wiped his hands on his cloth. "Why are you asking?" "I'm just curious." "Amaka." His voice was firm but not angry. "Some paths are forbidden for a reason. Leave it alone." She nodded and walked away, but she had already decided. She left before sunrise. No goodbye, just her wrapper, a clay pot, some groundnuts, and water. The path was rough. Thorns caught her cloth, tearing small holes in the fabric. The sun rose higher, turning the forest into an oven. By midday, her feet ached. Blisters formed on her heels. Her water was half gone. She thought about turning back. Then she thought about Teacher Anuegwe. She kept walking. After 4 hours, she reached the cave. It was larger than she expected. The entrance was covered with vines as thick as her arm. Ancient drawings covered the rock walls, figures with elongated bodies, symbols that looked like writing but in no language she knew. Warnings in old Igbo script she couldn't fully read. She pushed through the vines. They were wet and slippery, like living things trying to hold her back. Inside, the air was cool and damp. Water echoed somewhere ahead, a constant drip, drip, drip that sounded almost like footsteps. She walked carefully, one hand on the wall. The rock was smooth, worn by centuries of water and time. Then she saw it, a small pond, perfectly still. Sunlight poured through a crack in the ceiling, making the water glow like glass. The light fell in a single shaft, like a pathway from heaven. Amaka's hands shook as she filled her pot. The water was clear, so clear she could see the bottom, even though it looked deep. "If I die here," she whispered, "I'm sorry, but I have to know." She drank. The water was cold and sweet, sweeter than any water she had ever tasted. It slid down her throat like silk. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light rippled across the water. A figure appeared above the pond, tall, wrapped in light that hurt to look at directly. eyes like deep water that had never seen the sun. Amaka fell to her knees, her pot clattering beside her. You came. The voice was everywhere at once in the water, in the walls, in her own chest. I have waited 150 years for someone brave enough. Please, Amaka whispered, don't kill me. Kill you? The spirit moved closer, and Amaka could see her more clearly now. She was beautiful and terrible at the same time, ageless and ancient. Child, I have been waiting to be time's freed. She touched Amaka's forehead, and suddenly Amaka saw. She saw the past like a dream, but sharper, clearer, more real than her own memories. A man dressed in royal cloth stood by this same pond, King Bernard. The history books called him a hero, a founder, a warrior who united the villages. But here, Amaka saw the truth. He stood with 3 wizards, dressed in dark cloths, covered with symbols. Between them, bound with rope that glowed with unnatural light, was a woman, the goddess. She was younger then, or maybe just less worn. They had poisoned her water with something dark that spread through it like blood, trapped her in her own sacred place, used her power to conquer other villages, to make themselves strong, to build an empire on stolen divinity. And when she cursed them in return, when she used her last free breath to speak destruction over their line, they sealed the cave and told no one. They built their kingdom on lies and called it glory. The curse: 1 daughter per womb, 1 daughter per generation. A slow death for the people of Anuegwe, measured out in centuries of suffering. Amaka gasped and opened her eyes. Tears ran down her face, though she didn't remember starting to cry. Now you know, the goddess said. Her voice was softer now, sad. Your ancestors were not heroes. They were thieves, and this land has suffered for their greed. What can I do? Take this water. Bring it to your people. Let every woman drink. The curse will break. And you? I will be free. Finally, the goddess smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. I will return to the rivers where I belong, to the rain, to the streams. I will be everywhere and nowhere as I was meant to be. Amaka filled her pot and turned toward the entrance. Behind her, the goddess whispered, "Thank you, child. You have done what no warrior could do. You have chosen truth over fear." When Amaka emerged from the cave, the sun was setting. The sky was painted orange and red, like fire across the horizon. She walked quickly, the pot balanced on her head, ignoring the pain in her feet. As she reached the village border, a sound split the air. Gom, 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 the sacred drum, the one that had not sounded in 100 years. People screamed and ran into their huts. Doors slammed, windows shut. Amaka could hear children crying, mothers calling for their sons. Amaka walked straight to the village square and set down the pot. Her legs shook, but she stood tall. "Come out!" she shouted. "Don't be afraid." Slowly, faces appeared at windows. Her father stepped out first, his face pale, his machete in his hand, as if he could fight whatever curse was coming. "Amaka, you're alive?" "I'm alive, and I brought the truth." The crowd grew. Mama Amaka came running, crying, pulling her daughter close. "We thought you were dead. We thought the curse had taken you." Then the air shimmered again, and the goddess appeared in the square, tall, radiant, glowing in the fading light. People fell to the ground. Some screamed, some prayed. Amaka stepped forward with his fists raised, ready to fight even a goddess. But the goddess only smiled. "I do not come to curse you," she said. Her voice rolled across the square like thunder, but gentle thunder, the kind that promises rain after drought. "I come to free you. Your ancestors trapped me, poisoned my waters, used my power for war, and I cursed them in return. 1 daughter per family, so you would feel the slow death they gave me." The crowd was silent. Even the children had stopped crying. But this child, she gestured to Amaka, she had the courage to seek truth, to drink from forbidden waters, to break the cycle your fathers built. She pointed to the pot. "Drink. Every woman who drinks will birth daughters again. Many daughters. The curse is over." Amaka's mother was the first. She lifted the pot with shaking hands and drank deeply. The water spilled down her chin, but she didn't stop until she had swallowed 3 full mouthfuls. Then others came. Wives, mothers, grandmothers. The pot passed from hand to hand, and though dozens drank, it never emptied. 1 year later, the midwife's hut was never quiet. Twins, triplets, sometimes 4 daughters in one birth. The midwife, an old woman who had delivered babies for 40 years, laughed and cried and said she had never been so busy, so joyfully exhausted. The village filled with girls' laughter. The market grew louder. Schools had to build new classrooms. Teachers came from other villages to help educate all the children, and the men stopped wrestling. They learned to bring gifts, to tell stories, to sit and talk instead of fight. Amaka came to Amaka's door one evening with flowers he had walked 2 hours to find in the forest. "I don't know how to do this," he said, standing awkwardly at the entrance. "But I want to learn." She smiled. "Then sit down. Let's talk." 5 years later, Amaka sat with Mama Amadou under the same mango tree where she used to write in her notebook. Girls played in the compound. More girls than boys now. The balance was shifting. Their voices filled the air with songs, with arguments, with laughter that sounded like hope. "You did well, city girl," the old woman said. "I was just lucky." "No." Mama Amadou's eyes twinkled. "You were chosen." Amaka looked at her. "What do you mean?" "That day you helped me by the stream, I didn't need help. The goddess sent me to you. She knew you were the only one brave enough to go." Amaka stared. "You knew all along?" "Some paths must be walked alone," the old woman said. "But that doesn't mean you walk without guidance." She stood slowly and touched Amaka's shoulder. The village needed someone who questioned, someone who refused to accept suffering as tradition. You gave them that. As Mama Amadou walked away, Amaka looked out at the playing children. Teacher Anuegwe's daughter was among them, 15 years old now, alive, laughing, not yet married, not yet pregnant, just a girl being a girl. And beside her, her baby sister, the second daughter their mother never lived to see. But the curse was broken, and the water remembered. And in the rivers around Anuegwe, where the goddess now flowed free, the fish swam more abundant than ever before. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought with strength, but with courage to question what has always been accepted. When one person dares to seek the truth and challenge harmful traditions, they can break generational chains and create a future filled with freedom, balance, and hope.